Thank you. Next is nutrition, and one of two projects that big projects that Ashley has bit off. You get my pun there? Nutrition, bit off?
Oh, that
Yeah.
was funny, yes. I'm actually going to tie both of mine together because
Okay.
it was relatively the same outline. So there's a 4-page handout, front and back, because, why have one page? Okay, so I tried to address each of the 5 things that you had laid out, Chief Booker, from last time. So for the first portion of that is, what is our end goal? So for hormones, our end goal would be to implement some form of an educational and potential even maybe testing program to help firefighters identify and manage hormone imbalances, because these affect so heavily into performance, recovery, sleep, mental health, and even cancer and disease in the body. And then for nutrition, that would look like implementing also, again, an educational platform to help firefighters in Texas identify and implement quality nutrition choices in an effort to decrease fatigue, reaction times, long-term health issues, which also does include hormones, and ultimately decrease the risk of LODs in the fire service. So, 4 program steps, man, and like he said, like this is a pretty vast thing to kind of like wrap our brains around. Some of the things that I kind of came up with is website education links, like we had talked about, creating maybe a web page, maybe something that is app-based that could even transition into wearables and data collection. I mean, everybody has some kind of a Garmin or Apple Watch or an Oura Ring or a Fitbit. There's endless amounts of wearables, which I think that once you begin that lifestyle of your own data collection and tracking, you become very invested in it. If there was, the apps that all integrate together that show this is where you were, this is your sleep, this is your performance for the day, this incorporates your workout, et cetera. So coming up with some form of a referenceable, and maybe we just start with a website at this point, a link to have some education for that. Creating a guide for each of those for hormone and nutrition, and then differentiating male and female hormones. I hate women's hormones because they're absurd. They change every week. I know you all husbands are yes, preach. One of the biggest.
I just want to go on the record, not my wife. She is completely predictable.
She is so stable. Yes, noted.
There you go, saying something stupid.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. It is something that I have, kind of this land I've traversed on my own, like postpartum, having a baby, and everything's changing. Being in the fire service for, going on like 18 years, I've seen the change from when it was no big deal for me to lay down for a 15-minute nap, and now, if I'm up at 4 o'clock, that's the end of it. And I've heard guys go through this too. I specifically understand why the medical research has said we're only going to do things on male testing, because it's so, it's a 24-hour cycle, and women are just so all over the place. Obviously that, since more women are in the fire service now, it's something that we need to look at. And I'm learning just through myself and some other clients how vast of a difference hormones can make. So just to kind of move past that, but creating within the program maybe some partnerships or referrals, things that we could do. I don't want to be the one, and Chief O'Neill, I'm sure he doesn't want to be the same thing on this, like the sleep program. We're not the scientists, we're not the researchers. I don't want to be the person that collects all the data and puts all this together when other people have done that. And, creating these professional relationships with these people to have that stuff done, just like this Crackle magazine, Science Alliance. I mean, they have tons and tons of data. So gathering all that, creating these links to be able to push out that information is kind of where I think I'm going to go with that. And then I am more of a speak to the masses type of person, because there are so many people who are invested in this fire service wellness movement, but it's, extremely time consuming to go speak at this department on A and B and C shift, and then, you bring in D shift at that point. And so if we were able to open this up to a bigger workshop, a symposium, a conference, something like that would be, hit 400 people in one speech kind of thing. And then link them obviously to whatever platform we go with. And then a big education portion on hormones and both hormones and nutrition. And there's every way you can go with that. There's paleo, there's keto, there's carnivore, there's low carb, there's high protein, high carb. And I think that what I will have to do here is come back down to the science of whole food, and you can adjust as accordingly, whatever meets your needs and works best for you. As far as for the hormones, we're talking about VO2 max testing. There is a lot of discussion, are we pro hormone therapy? Are we against hormone therapy? How does it affect your VO2 max? How does it affect polycythemia? And you get increased levels of H&H in your blood, and now you can't oxygenate your body. So all of this has to be done fairly strategically, to not say, yes, everybody on testosterone, let's just all get crazy. But to say, hey, if you have completely destroyed through the lack of sleep and stress your adrenal glands, and now you have poor thyroid health, and now you have poor hormone production, and now you've set yourself up for low levels of glutathione, and now you end up with disease, and then you get cancer, and then you have mental health problems because your hormones are out of whack. There's strategy to this, and it's just a big muddy pit to wade through currently. But that all has to somehow get pushed out and incorporated into this. Another big piece of that, I think, needs to be education on the portion of how to correctly test and balance hormones. Because most clinics, these little pop-up shops, are just saying, yeah, here you go. I hope that your testosterone total is 2,000 next week. And good luck, and tell your wife I'm sorry. And, it's creating like these, not to say roid rage, but these firemen who are just completely roller coastered, which also affects your mental health. So the education portion is huge, and I think that is why it's gonna have to be more of a broadcasted thing to hit as many people as we can in one thing. On nutrition, there is tons. I know Chief Anderson is involved in some of the stuff with the National Fallen Firefighters, that they have things listed for nutrition-specific things. There's a girl out of the Northeast, I know Fleuryville uses as well. She has all of this stuff laid out, and as to not reinvent the wheel, I think a partnership with someone like her in that realm is, she's done the back work on this stuff, so why would I go try to re-implement that and recreate it? All right, so that's all there for your reading pleasure. And then number 3, timeline, at minimum a 12-month time frame, I would have to say, just with the amount of information that is involved in education in this. And it's broken down into quarters, theoretical quarters, obviously, but research and planning and partnerships, education and awareness launches, the conferences. I know Fleuryville, again, is hosting a health and wellness symposium in September. That might be something that, if we're not able to present it, at least we have a presence there. And just say, hey, look, TCFP has this health and wellness committee. This is a big thing. Other health and wellness workshops or conferences that are across the state. Self-assessment tools, like we were talking about the data tracking and wearables. Any type of testing and data collections, there's a House bill right now that's looking at specifically data collection for female firefighters versus female Gen Pop. And, you know, if like that information gets out there, that's awesome. We can just use that more. And then going over and evaluating everything that we have, and then eventually, maybe that does look like a policy consideration for a department or the state, to where we can say, here's all the information after a couple of years, what does this look like for a wellness policy for, you know, that specific department? Or at least giving them some form of a template that maybe they can utilize. Number 4 on page 4, how will we know if we're successful? So to measure success, we will have to have qualitative and quantitative data. We're going to have measurements somehow, and that may be just self-reported data, like behavioral and physical health improvements. How are the firefighters like addressing this stuff? Do they think it's stupid and they hate it and everything sucks? Or are they saying, hey, we really do see the benefit of this stuff? I think since the 1580 is coming out and has, you know, changed some of those requirements with VO2 max and the METs, that has kind of just pushed that wellness movement up even more, where guys are,
I'm sorry, I just realized we had the wrong person make your copies. We're only seeing your odd pages.
oh,
I'm like, why am I stupid here? What am I missing?
Single copy versus double page.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So if you
Well-
could just speak to the odd
Speed up.
information.
yeah, that's fine. Gotcha. Well, that's okay. We'll get it to you.
You got a 50.
We'll get it corrected later. So for how will we know if we're successful? That is gonna have to be ultimately data collection. It can be self-reported, you know, data collection from these things just like the House bill, surveys, it could be data trends, it could be collecting the data that these annual physical providers have, you know, just, I mean, it's pretty blanketed information. It's not HIPAA at that point. You just say, how many guys are you having? Is this improving? Has the trend of 4896 improved anything? You know, do you have data to show that? Or has it made it worse? And then Chief O'Neill can just write his own paper on that. And that'll be good. And then just creating a firehouse culture shift. That's going to have to be a big thing in my specific station. That has significantly happened. The culture shift is a thing. In my time, just in my city, we have gone from, you know, we don't even talk about health and wellness to now it's a significant portion of what we do. And then we could also look even at like sick leave. Are we having less instances of sick and injury related things? And then what is causing that? And really tie that back to the injury report. And then number 5, is this an education or a rule? So both programs would have to begin as educational platforms. It's pretty difficult to develop a rule for personal wellness, but you can develop a standard as a minimum for the fire service. So I think that's probably going to have to be where we have the rule portion of it, the standard, is to say, you know, hey, this is what we want to go after. And I know the House Bill 2009 talking about making annual physicals mandatory and things like that might be something that we kind of attach to and mold and shape as we see fit to implement with this. Policy implementation for a department, et cetera. And then, since you don't have this page, so key areas to address. That would be stress and cortisol regulation, talking just about how, you know, the education on stress and cortisol, how that factors into your adrenal glands and thyroid, and then ultimately hormones, specifically testosterone for men, and then everything for the female. How that plays into like glutathione production. I just read a study about this yesterday. But how if you have higher levels of stress, then you end up with lower levels of glutathione, which is your most prominent detoxifier in your body. So essentially, you're not detoxing as well, setting yourself up for higher levels of toxins, which if you go on many fires, then you end up with that. And then that only leads you to a closer rate of disease, and then obviously closer to cancer. Talking about TRT, how it affects the blood cells, the effect on VO2 max, roller coasters of emotion. Fatigue with thyroid function and metabolism, making sure that we're not just testing like just a TSH and free T level, like we're really getting a big panel on these things, looking at the whole picture. Metabolic health and disease prevention, insulin sensitivity and blood sugar regulation, performance nutrition, and then fire station food culture. What does that look like? How do we create that? And then how do nutrition and hormones affect the fire service from an employer's perspective? Because those are the people that we will have to get on board. Firemen, like, they can be on board all they want, but if you cannot convince administration to, help go that direction, then it really defeats the purpose. And then where that comes in would be cognitive function, decision-making. What is your recovery time, on scene, injuries, retention and career longevity, job performance and safety, long-term health costs. Obviously, we don't want guys, we don't want to set them up for failure, give them cardiovascular disease, and then send them out on the fire ground. And insurance and healthcare costs, and productivity and team readiness. So that is to answer your 5 questions. It's a massive amount of information, but it did cover 2 topics, so.
Well, no, it's a ton of information, and I felt like, I think inadvertently you kept pointing at me, especially on the nutrition topics. I had this idea as you were talking, and I wrote it down like a big question mark. How do we participate? How do we partner our committee with all these conferences? You were talking about conferences. I'm like, why aren't we presenting? Instead of using the website and coming to the quarterly meetings, why don't we just try and create a standing invitation to all of these conferences for sessions and on your nutrition, your hormone project. That's going to be a multi-year potentially project. How cool would that be to lay that out in all these conferences and just in real time? Like, this is where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
So that by the time you have a product, you'll have at least some willing participants waiting for the product instead of
Yes.
having to try and hard sell it at that point.
And it got skipped over, it's probably on an even page, but there are some there are some universities, I know like she had spoke to A&M, Texas Tech, Science to the Station, Texas A&M and Texas Tech are the most local on the research development teams. I know Texas Tech is huge into firemen's health, specifically as a college student research, and I'm sure A&M is as well. I mean, they're doing the work on that stuff. Like, we just need to be the ones that gather it. IFF, we have utilized, for my city, we've utilized them for the Pure Fitness Trainer, but they also have the platform of like the Wellness Fitness Initiative. I mean, that stuff is already out there. Like, why? If we align with that and we like it, well, partnership at that point. But yes, I love conferences. I think the fire service right now is extremely conference driven, and that could be whatever we want it to look like.